Hello, welcome to Quackalope, thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a Kickstarter preview of Barbaric from Hexa House Studios. This is a modular skirmish game with a lot of fantastic miniatures, a post-apocalyptic world where animals have turned into humanoid-type forms using technology of old to, well, harness them for their own machinations and desires, and of course, a ton of modular powers and abilities depending on what gear and rider you're combining together. We'll show you that in just a second, and depending on how you actually build and upgrade your unit throughout the course of play. This is a fun, helter-skelter, run-to-get-the-target type of game. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. So this is Barbaric, and despite the futuristic nature of some of the animals that you're actually controlling here, this is set in a post-apocalyptic world. It's going to be a 2 to 4 player skirmish style game where you have two main objectives. Either the simple, straightforward approach, beat up your opponents until you knock them out at least twice, or the more complicated, manipulate one of the giant boss miniatures in the center of the board so that they have to deal with the other players around the table. You can grab this energy cell and run off the side, meaning that you've advanced your own technology and you've become the most barbaric. This is set in a world of post-apocalyptic, well, Earth, in a way. You see, we've consumed and utilized and really run the Earth ragged of all the resources that we had available to us, and through our invention and technology of nuclear power and nuclear waste, we have slowly started transforming ourselves and the technology that we use into more primitive means, combining our genetic traits with that of animals and spawning, well, the landscape that you see before us. The object of Barbaric comes down to that skirmish element, but the puzzle that you're trying to solve along the way is actually more interesting and complicated. It uses a really cool system of combining two different player boards that I have in front of us, one with a rider and one with a set of gear. The gear is going to be the vehicle that you're using, in a way. The thing that helps you move around the board and deal some heavy hits or heavy damage, and the rider is going to be the creature that is you. For instance, here I could have a Techo and Midas combination, which is the incredible ape, and a cybernetic, sort of cybernetic goldfish, which I think is just charming to say the least. Now, the cool thing about this is all of the miniatures are actually modular. So you have one of your riders, you have one of your gear, and I can pop a few of these off here and actually go ahead and combine them in whichever way I want. Like, for instance, do you want a giant shark hybrid creature, a giant shark robot, and you want to combine that with the lovely little bunny rabbit that we see on the front of the box? And they click into place, so I can actually hold and maneuver them with the creature itself, or if you want to be as safe as possible, with the base. Now, I am, of course, working with a prototype here, so everything will be refined, and some elements may be changed by the time you get your game, but I like that little modular puzzle. It's the same thing that I'm doing with my player board as well, actually. Combining two different units, and let's go ahead and find. We have the Carcanos, which is going to be, or the Megalodon, which is going to be the shark that I just got, and Celts, who is going to be the little rabbit that we've just combined there. Our board fits together, our creature and our gear is now established, and we are ready to start playing the game. Now, the game combines boards, but that's not all it's going to combine. You're also going to be mixing together your personal player deck. For instance, here I have the rabbit, and let's go ahead and find the Megalodon here as well. And these will shuffle together, making a pile of cards that you'll start drawing from to determine, well, how you start upgrading your own vessel, gaining new skills for your player to use, and of course, maneuvering and, well, filtering around the board. I'll set the miniatures to the side for just a second so I can show you what's happening on the actual table here, and we'll grab all of these different cards. Now, as you can imagine, because of the modularity of how this card system, the board system combines, there's a lot of different variable ways to play, and each creature has its own flavor, its own impact on the game's state. So depending on if you're like me and you want to pick the most thematic or coolest creature you can find, or if you want to pick someone that you feel like matches well and is a real challenge for your opponent, you're going to be able to play around with your own play style. I have my player board here. I have my units, which I've combined. I have my deck of cards, which I've combined as well, and you'll notice a few things happening on the player board. First off, I have basic actions that each character can take. So, for instance, my Rider can do Search, First Aid, or activate a special skill. My Megalodon, who's my gear, can go ahead and do a Move or a Maintain. That means I can start gathering resources, which you'll see marked around the board here, whether they're wild resources or specific things like fuel or food, or I can go ahead and start maneuvering and healing myself back up. The gear is the part of your unit or the part of your construction that is the last to be destroyed, and staying alive is one of the big puzzles of the game. Now, you might think you'd just go directly for the boss, take out the big bad, make sure he's not a problem on the board anymore, but while his minions can be defeated and they will be spawning around the board, you actually cannot take down this creature. You see, this is a giant beast of a creature that's protecting this nuclear waste that we're trying to collect, and all you can do is attack it in order to manipulate it, to guide it to different locations, have it impact or influence the friends around the board, and really contribute to your skirmish side of the puzzle. However, if you're close enough to hit it effectively, you're close enough to be in danger. Your friends can also utilize this creature to their own machinations and devious plans and plots as well. You can see over here we have a giant monster board. Its frenzy is going to increase as each one of its little units gets knocked off the board, making it more and more deadly, more and more dangerous, and more of a effective way to knock out your opponents. And you're going to have your monster reactions: Leap, Ruthless Tail, Queen's Roar, Claw Slash, Nuclear Beam, and Counter. These are things that if you deal enough damage, if you use your cards right, you're going to be able to instruct this creature to do to the people sitting around the table. Now, once I've combined these boards, I'm also going to have a few different elements on the table in front of me as well. We have Mastery for each one of our characters, and we have these neat little dials that set into the center and make it look like one single unit. You upgrade these dials, you gain skill and experience in the game by utilizing your cards. Your cards are going to be composed of a variety of different actions and reactions that you can take, but the core use for most of them is going to be drawing up and then placing them down next to the side of your board and equipping them. The Sweet Carrot's not the best example of that, but for instance, Dive is an ability that I have here, and Carrot Missile is an ability that I have here. Every character comes with their own reaction cards and comes with skills that they can use. As the game starts, you'll very quickly be able to purchase and place down a few of your skill abilities, and then you're encouraged to use those abilities for the rest of the game, meaning that you'll be upgrading them and adding new cards to the side of your tableau. Let me find another one here, like the Chronos Field. These abilities will not only give you more experience as you play, upping your energy and stamina over here, which will allow you to unlock more action tokens that you can utilize, meaning you don't have to refresh and rest as often, and you'll also be able to gain some of your skill masteries. And if you make it to the end of this puzzle, you'll also be able to regain a bit of health, which, like we said at the beginning, is an important tactic in this game. So the game escalates very quickly. You start off with a simplified board, a few simple actions that you can take, and you start drawing cards. Now, you draw cards as long as your board doesn't have completely exhausted actions on it at the end of the upkeep phase. After every player has gone through both a day and night cycle, you'll then have the creature or the monster that's in the center of the table go, directing its own abilities and then also the abilities of its units, assuming that you've done enough damage for them to be interested or aware of your presence. At the beginning of both the day and night cycle, or the turn phase, you'll also be drawing event cards, which will have lasting impacts on the board as a whole, and everyone playing. The actions on these event cards will be based off of, well, what time of day it is, whether it is day or night, and you have a tracking board up here in the top corner that'll allow me to maneuver and make sure that I'm following the turn order. At the start of my turn, I will take an action, my friends/opponents will take actions, we'll move down to the night phase, and then the monster will go as we progress into the second, third, fourth round of the game. Now, like I said, your player boards are going to be based off of a action system, which you will get more of as the game continues. Now, each character is going to be able to use one of these tokens to either take a basic action, flipping it over to its stamina side, meaning it's going to need a little bit of rest, or taking one of their specialized upgraded actions that they've purchased and placed down onto the table. Now, if you have any of your actions left, you'll be able to draw more cards from your deck, which is going to give you more ultimate abilities, more instant reactions, and more skills that you can place, giving you more areas or more abilities to utilize. When you first start the game, you're going to start by grabbing and harboring some resources. You'll quickly spend those building your tableau, upgrading your unit, drawing into cards, allowing you to get those powerful items that you're looking for, and then finally, you'll make a rush or a dash, either working with and utilizing the creature in the center of the board to knock out your opponents, giving you one step closer to victory, or grabbing the nuclear waste from the very center of the board and doing your best to run off, well, any of the sides, which is easier said than done. I can promise you that. The moment you have your hands on that vial, everyone is coming for you. Everyone is looking to knock you out. If you do get knocked out in this game, you'll remove your miniature from the game, you'll reset your board, and you'll spawn back in at the beginning of your next turn, skipping that phase, but popping in wherever there's a open free zone, so you can kind of avoid detection a little bit, or put yourself in a more advantageous spot if you think that you can take a few hits before potentially grabbing the nuclear waste and running off. The things that I think are really cool about Barbaric so far, it's a quick-playing, fun game that is trying to be, well, exactly what it is. A helter-skelter skirmish game. I like how these boards combine with the various decks. It's one of the systems that I find that I enjoy in a lot of games of this style. I like when you build a team together, and combination of the very cool miniatures that actually lock and load, and the way that both of these units feel significantly powerful on their own. When they're mixed together, it feels like you've created something wholly new, and you can really sink your teeth into these combinations and figure out cool powers and abilities that you want to use. Now, along with that, another thing that I think is really cool about Barbaric so far is that as you play, you find that you're progressing very quickly. The game kind of continues to ramp up until that final crescendo, and that's because you're always drawing into cards, you're gaining resources, you're buying new abilities, and you're utilizing those as you go. And the more that you use your special abilities, the higher your skill grows, which means you have more actions to spend, you're drawing more cards, and that cycle just continues. They've done a good job at pacing, especially the front end of this game, where you feel like you've just done everything cool possible with the characters that you've gotten, and then it really comes down to being proficient and utilizing those open moments to take advantage of other players or to make it off with the resources. Overall, I think this is a really cool game, and if you're into skirmish games, it's one that you absolutely should be paying attention to. I was first drawn to it because the art is epic, the miniatures are awesome, and I was excited when I sat down to play to figure out exactly how the core systems worked. So, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. We might try to get a gameplay done before the end of this campaign. It really depends on our own schedule, considering we're about to run off to Gen Con, and we hope to see a few of you all there as well. Whatever the case, though, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you next time. Thank you.